Well, William, I think it's been a couple of weeks since I've seen you last. How you been?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Good. Not inspecting today?
Nope, I am not.
All right, so we're podcasting then, right?
Yeah.
Well, today we're switching it up a little bit. I've got the laptop. I've got some photos, and before we get started, want to let everybody know we appreciate you coming on the podcast. We're sponsored today by Bugnex and More Simplest Property Inspections, and we're going to talk to you today about things that we find in inspections. We're going to have some neat pictures for you, some pretty unique things I got. Make sure you like, subscribe. Please mash that subscribe button. Give us some of your comments. We appreciate the feedback, and share with your friends and family. We want to grow our viewership. So without any further ado, here's our nice, beautiful Bugnex website. Go check out our nice, beautiful Morrison website. And let's talk about some photos. So first photo I'm going to pull up here today is going to be about a concrete roof, William. We had an inspector that went out and inspected a house, and I believe it was an 80-plus year old home. And it had a brand new concrete tile roof on it. Well, maybe not brand new, but I mean a fairly new concrete tile roof. And you can see it right there. It's heavy. There's some slip tiles on the roof. But when you got in the attic, there was a section of the attic that was newer. They had an addition. It was newer framing, just newer standards, like 2x10s, 2x12s, 18 inches on center. Real beefy, right? But this is the part of the house that had the original roof framing from when the house was originally built, which I suspect was a wood shake shingle. And you can see that the rafters are 2x4s. They look like they're at least 24 inches, if not 30 inches on center, so they're wide. They have a strong back there with some purlin supports that really aren't to today's standards as far as structural strength and holding up a heavy roof. But this is pretty typical, would you say, for a roof that was built back in the 40s?
Yeah, I'd say that actually most of the time.
Yeah, and it's totally fine, right?
Yep, it looks like it's holding up. I don't see any sagging there at the.
I asked the inspector, did you see any sagging of the tiles, of the sheathing? I mean, was it performing? And he said, I mean, from everything he could tell, yes, it was. However, some things that inspectors kind of lose sight of in property inspections. We train a lot of inspectors, right? We have franchises. We train a lot of inspectors. What's really tough is you have homes that were built to different standards during different periods of construction, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So experience on those different periods of construction, which you can only gain by going and doing home inspections, is paramount to being able to know what you're looking at and what the impact of some newer materials are that might be, changed out or updated with the older materials on how the home was built or the architecture of the home. And this is exactly what's going on here in this case. We have a concrete tile roof. I think we started seeing these concrete tiles like this, in the 70s. Maybe as early as the 70s. I don't think we saw these in the 80s, but in the 70s, predominantly, 60s, not much in the 70s. This really came into being in the 80s and the 90s. And concrete's heavy, but it lasts longer. This is a 50-plus year rated roof. But the framing in the attic is for either a wood shake shingle, which is much lighter, or an asphalt composition type shingle, which again is lighter.
Yeah.
And so when you see them come out and they put a bunch of concrete on, pretty minimalistic framing here when you really look at it. I mean, can it hold that? And this particular buyer or seller had permits, with signatures, and that roofer or that I don't know if they had a structural engineer look at it or not, but it probably was just a roofing contractor, came out, and obviously they gave permits. So the city inspector came out and inspected it, says it's fine. Right. But
I mean, we get that all the time though, where the city inspector comes out and signs off on it, and then we mention, oh, this actually isn't built to what the standard is. And now they're like, well, who do we trust? Who do we believe? Do we believe you as a home inspector? Or do we take the city inspector's side, where he signed off on it?
well,
So it should be okay.
and this is where it gets sticky. Is city inspectors in the United States cannot be held liable to a lawsuit for what they inspect or what they don't inspect. Right?
Right.
Even if you knew that.
I did know that. I mean,
Right?
But yeah.
I don't know if all home inspectors know that, but private inspectors, we are held liable for what we inspect and don't inspect. So the city inspector can say, hey, this is fine. I'm going to give you permits for this. But we have to make sure that it's okay to do that, and we have to inform our customers of what the condition is. And so in this particular case, the inspector recommended further review, and you can see those red lines in the photo. Current building standards state that you have to have purlin supports for that strong back every other rafter. And, those purlin supports have to go to a bearing wall. And there's no bearing wall under there. I spoke to the inspector. He was just kind of giving him an example of, we should have more support there. But at the same time, I mean, a good inspector should be saying, hey, you need to, get your own opinion from a qualified roofer on whether this is okay. We can't do that. And the reason we can't do that, it doesn't meet current standards. We've re-engineered the roof, or maybe we didn't re-engineer the roof, but it's being used for a different purpose. It's going to require more, I guess what you say, tensile strength or more strength to hold up the heavier weight. And us as inspectors, we're not doing those calculations.
Yeah, and I was familiar with this inspection as well. I guess they used a lightweight concrete tile, and that may have been why they were able to get away with.
But see, there's no way for us to know that. They told you that, but there's really no way for us to verify that.
Yeah, unless they showed us paperwork, and then we did our research on the manufacturer specifications and all that. But I mean, we're just there to do a general home inspection.
But this is one of those areas, right, where it's really hard to get it right.
Yeah.
So we had a meeting, and we went hard on this and talked about it. One thing that we would like to have had done better was not to put this photo in the report and just say that, and we all came to a consensus: concrete tiles observed, older framing remains. Recommend verifying with the qualified roofer for
final signatures and permits.
Final signatures, permits, and just kind of take that off that we don't know.
Yeah,
that's something that's really hard for inspectors, because a lot of us get caught in that space where we feel like we're expected to know everything, to collect the check, to do the inspection, and
especially when you have a full day of inspections, and it's like taking that extra step to go the extra mile. Sometimes not everybody takes the leap to do that. So.
Knowing when to hold them, when to fold them, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
On this one, definitely you want to defer this to a roofer, or make sure that they verify the permits on this. So this is what the newer code is, and it shows you what we're talking about here: purlins and kickers. So if you go back, you can see that strong back or purlin, and the kickers coming down. That's kind of, I mean, for one, I wish there was a little more strength holding that thing up. I really wasn't that comfortable with that roof for those tiles. I mean, I felt like it was heavier than it should be. But again, I'm not a structural engineer, and so it's not my place to alarm the client that, because what if they really like that house and they don't buy that house because I said that, and it's totally fine. So it wouldn't be cool. All right, so here's a unique photo, something that beautiful front porch. I'm suspecting that all these photos are going to be the same house, but you can see they put these neat pavers out there, and it looks just like it's been updated, but no handrail. And whenever you have more than 3 steps, which in this case you have 1, 2, 3, 4, you're supposed to have a nice handrail there. And maybe they didn't want the handrail or whatnot, but that is a safety issue, and you're supposed to have that. And so this inspector did a great job by showing this red line.
I think it's kind of funny they put a hedge right in front of the mailbox.
That's a nice boxwood there too. So yeah. All right, let's look at this one. So let's talk about this. We haven't pulled these photos out. We're going to start seeing more and more of these. Title or the Chapter 625 in the National Electric Code now talks about electric vehicle chargers.
Yep.
You want to tell us a little bit about that, William?
So I do know they have height requirements, and the requirements differ whether or not the charging station is inside the house or
And an
or outside the house.
interior location, which is not wet, as
Yep,
opposed to an exterior location, which would be wet.
correct.
Um,
And I'm not sure, is this photo supposed to be making mention of the charging station because he has the arrow pointed at one of the GFCI outlets, it looks like.
yeah, I'm not really sure what he's trying to say here. Actually, he has a couple of photos. I didn't read his comment on it, but the code is if it's outside, it's got to be 24 inches above the ground.
Yep.
That looks like it's pretty close. But why they put it under that window, if that's an egress window, maybe it shouldn't be there. Maybe that should be moved over to the left a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is
It could be that maybe the molding in front of the window is just draining right onto the charger.
yeah. I mean, I think this is fine.
Yeah, I do too.
I don't think there's any issue here. But yeah, so if this would have been any lower, I would have called that out and recommended relocating it. It would have been nice if they would have put this maybe another foot higher over here in between the window and the door.
Yeah. I have a feeling that this comment's actually going to be there's an issue with the outlet, and he's using the arrow to tell you where the outlet, what the issue is.
Right. But then he took this photo, so
I think he did that as an overview.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's talk about this. This is something that's more fun. We have a lot of property here in our area where there are water purification systems. We don't have all the best water here in Southern California because the majority of our water comes from the Colorado River and the high Sierras, and there's a watershed, and so most of our water comes from ducts, our water ducts, kind of like a canal. Down here to Southern California, most people don't realize we are in the desert area here, and we don't have enough water here to support the population. So it comes from the Sierras, which is mid to Northern California, or the Southern Sierras, and then the Colorado River. And so a lot of that water has to be filtered, chlorinated. By the time it comes to our house, depending on where it's coming from, who knows, right? A lot of people feel like they want to purify it themselves. And so, that's great. That's what this is. And this is a private purification system. But these purification systems have a drainage on them, right? Do you know much about those?
I do know that they drain. I'm not sure exactly what they drain because I look for leaks and proper installation and making sure everything's secure. And that's pretty much it as far as most home inspectors go with these things.
Right.
I'm not too familiar.
Yeah, I'm not either.
With the
So
softening
water
process.
purification systems are beyond the scope. It's not something that we, as inspectors study, have classes on. We don't test them. You're right. All we look at them for is make sure there's not leaking or any real bad physical damage or.
I do know when it's time to have these things clean. They're very loud and obnoxious.
Oh, really?
I got a call after I left an inspection. The thing was just screaming for dear life, and it wasn't doing that when I was there.
Oh, really?
And I did my research, looked into it, and then I found out it was just time for maintenance. Of course, it was time an hour after I left.
Right.
But yeah.
So one of the things that is home inspectors that we are to look for is these drains. These drains have to go to an approved location, meaning that they can't go to a location that is to the wastewater, right? You can't.
Oh yes, of course.
Because the waste system of the home has to be ventilated. A lot of people don't realize it. When we inspect the drain waste vent system, so the drain from your toilet, the drain from your sink, the drain from your shower, drain from your tub, goes into the wastewater sewer system for the city, right? Unless you have a septic system for the home. But that drain waste system has to be vented so it doesn't gurgle, clog, back up, and things can just flow out nice and easy because, some of the waste is solid, okay? And obviously, you get some real foul waste going through the system. So we don't want any of that coming up into our nice purified water, right? Or into the condensate drain lines of our heating and air conditioning system. And so we have to look at these drains. And so this drain is telling me that they're sending it under the house because it's a raised foundation into the wall. They're not having it just go to the ground here and into the yard.
Well, that's interesting that you say that because I know the only correct way to backwash a DE pool filter is to run it in reverse and send a hose to the clean out on the side of the house.
Well, okay, so now where it goes to the waste system for that is not anything that, that should have a backflow valve on it, right? So none of that water should be able to back up into the pool.
Yeah.
Right? But this particular one, I mean, it's a drain too. So like condensate drain lines, they have to drain above a trap. So if you have the tail piece for a sink, before it gets to that little U-shaped, what we call a P-trap, which is where the vacuum is, so the wastewater or the sewer gases can't come up through your sink, it's got to connect above that on the tailpipe. Here, what they did is, look where they're sending the drain to.
Is that that's just the main drain?
It's just the main drain right underneath the bathroom.
And that looks like there's a couple issues here.
Yeah.
One, I know drain lines can't reduce in size, wait, no, that one's actually expanding in size, but they didn't fit it correctly. And is there a P trap under that? You think?
Well, I mean, now
is that for a tub?
Now that flexible pipe, the clear pipe, it looks like it might reduce into that smaller PVC connector right there. Yeah. So you might be right there. Look, that's a big drain right there. I'm suspecting this is the toilet is on the other side of there connecting to this. That's going to be the toilet over there to the left.
Yeah. That's
the toilet. So this is wastewater flowing right underneath this right here. So pretty toxic or foul gases are going to get up into that line.
And if it's not sealed correctly, potentially underneath the house.
No, you're right. This is not the way you don't just drill a hole through the rubber or through the plastic and just, hey, Johnny, stick it in there. No, this is wrong every which way to Sunday. But this is your wastewater. You go right to the other side of the wall there, and it's going right into the area where essentially you're pooping.
Yep.
And who kind of defeats. I don't know that that's going to get up into the water you're drinking, but I wouldn't want to be drinking that water.
Yeah, I mean, it could potentially siphon up.
It could. Now we have a backup. It could back up into that. Now you're drinking it.
Yeah.
No
showering in it
or whatever, right? Yeah. So anyway, this is a great catch here. This is something that's actually fairly common. Yep. Would you say you see this every once in a while?
Yep. And I see that with other things, even like HVAC drain lines and stuff like that too. So
don't skip your home inspection. Everything might look all great and remodeled, but I think for a couple $100 you'd want to know this.
Yeah, and we would see this issue in a new home even.
Oh yeah. Brand new construction. So I up into the attic, right above that.
Looks like it's going right to an attic vent, though.
Yep. If you look right above that spot, they got the right idea here.
I'd like to see it go a little bit farther.
Sure. Well, I mean, that flexible vent material shouldn't be coming through the ceiling. It should be a rigid material. So they use the wrong material, completely wrong material, and then it didn't get all the way up and out. So, yeah, but they tried. At least they got a fan, right? All right, let's go under the house now. You've seen a lot of this winter, huh? We've been getting a lot of rain here on the West Coast.
Oh yeah, most houses actually.
Huh?
Most houses actually.
Yeah, water. One of the number one things, and I say this all the time, is grade drainage. And when you're in a desert area and we don't get much rain for years and years, and then we get a lot of rain, the moisture, a lot of times you're seeing it's getting underneath the property. So now when you go a couple of years without, 2 weeks of rain, that's it? In like the next 2 or 3 years, and it's all dry, and it's like, I shouldn't call it the grading.
Well, I mean, yeah. And almost every inspection I mentioned this, someone goes, Oh, well, it never rains. That's why we're having issues.
I've once, earlier in my career, I went 10 months here in SoCal with no rain. 10 months.
I remember that year.
You were young. You remember that?
Yeah.
So this is something that not too surprising. You need to ventilate the crawl space to make sure this can dry out.
Yep.
This house, they dug up some stuff, man. They excavated a lot of dirt. They need to fill that back in.
Yeah, we're getting around that time period where we got to be replacing a lot of cast iron drains. It's just time to, and so they excavate a lot to do that, then they never put the soil back.
Well, I mean, it's kind of cut in the corner, right?
Yeah.
And
When no one else is going to go down there, how would they know?
Yeah. So this is a condition we find in the crawl space a lot. Wood going right up to the post.
That's probably from the excavation.
Probably. Good point. Hey, very astute there, William. So this should all be pulled back. You got to get that away. Why don't we want wood going or dirt in contact with the wood post, William?
Well, it just exposes the wood to unnecessary moisture and damage, and then once you get wet wood, now it becomes food for critters like termites and other things like that.
It can. I mean, as a branch 3 termite inspector, I can tell you that we have a lot of issues with subterranean termites. And in this particular case, I mean, that post looks like it's in great shape, but we don't want moisture hitting it where you can get like a fungus rotting the wood, or you don't want, bugs or pests eating it, because this is part of the foundation. It's holding up the house.
Are all these photos from the same house?
This is all the same house.
So everything makes sense. We got new ABS drain lines. We got excavation, and then the excavation is creating another problem and putting wood in contact with soil. So this is all stemming from a drain replacement.
Yep. Drain replacement, and actually, a remodel, putting in that water purification system.
Yeah.
After they had the new drains. And Yep. It looks like they rewired the house too. And this is how we rewire the house.
Did they just splice the wires and then
they just it's 3:00, it's happy hour. Let's just. I don't even know what's going on here. It doesn't even look like it's spliced. It looks like it's kind of just been ripped apart. I mean, shit.
Maybe some big guys down there doing the plumbing work.
Maybe somebody crawled over it and. This needs to be stapled up to the wood subfloor.
Yeah, maybe protected with some tape.
Yeah, that needs to be respliced to put in the junction box now.
Yeah.
So here's that other area that was excavated. I mean, there's probably a pipe down there somewhere, but definitely need to fill this back in. So I got this last photo here for you, William. Maybe we need to kind of do decks and balconies. Podcast.
I know those inspections are becoming very popular. It's becoming California law. A lot of apartment buildings and condo buildings I go in now.
They're required to have them done now. They're required to have in California, you're required to have your decks and balconies inspected periodically.
Once a year. I think it's annually.
I think it's every 3 years. 3 years, I think.
Maybe the HOA put an annual notice on theirs that I wasn't. Right?
I think apartment owners have we'll do a podcast on it. We'll do a podcast on it, because I've actually looked into it and read all the stuff on it, and there should be a lot of work coming for it. I just don't know if we're going to be the ones that do it, because to really sign off on decks and balconies, especially if they're boxed up, you're going to have to do some destructing, at least on a representative sampling of them, if it's an apartment building. So, But this sucker here needs to be rebuilt. This is
I would perfectly agree. It looks like the wood's pretty deteriorated. It's starting to rot. This is a very unsafe condition if you want to walk on this balcony. This should be taped and sealed off.
Yeah. Don't. No, nobody's that's something our inspectors, we don't carry do not stay out tape. Probably should, though. Seeing this going up there, probably should put a little tape on that saying don't walk on this.
Probably see something like that once a month. So,
do you? Yeah. Okay. Yes, I haven't been out in a while, so. Well, so you agree? Next podcast, we're going to do some decks and balconies?
Yep.
All right, very cool. Well, it's good to see you again, William.
Yep, you too.
Everybody, hit that subscribe button if you like this content. We really appreciate it, and leave us your comments.